Hi there, this is Julie Willand, and welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack series. This lesson is part of Project Pack 6. Project Pack 6 is a playful series that brings focus and pays homage to one of the Zentangle method's most important philosophies, no mistakes. Throughout this series, we will discuss, share thoughts and stories, and reveal some tricks to working with the no mistakes philosophy. We will do this as we tangle our way through covering the pages of a small journal. We will be working in custom-made Zentangle mini journals that are included in your Project Pack 6 materials. But if you don't have one, you can easily follow along these lessons with whatever materials you might have at home. We do recommend watching the introduction video to the series first, but the rest of the Project Pack 6 videos can be done in any order. Today I am working with my Zentangle mini journal. I have a black Micron 01, a white Jelly Roll 08, I've got my graphite pencil and my white charcoal pencil and some tortillons. So we're going to dive right in here today, opening up to a blank page in your journal. Doesn't have to be the same one as mine, and you might even have a journal with different ink splat patterns. Just find one that feels comfortable with you. And we're going to start with our Jelly Roll 08. Working in this black ink area. So I'm going to start with the Tangled Printemps, and we're going to be working with kind of a larger scale version of Printemps. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some weight to these lines. I like to use this weighting technique in a lot of my tangles. I feel like it adds a little more drama, a little more depth. And I'm going to fill this entire space with Printemps working towards the middle, but I'm going to stay within the limits of my black ink. I think the no mistakes philosophy is an important one, not just to use in your art and in your Zentangle art, but to use in your life. And I think it's something that's really fostered here at Zentangle, that when you find yourself making a mistake or in an unfavorable place, to not dwell on it too much, to figure out what's your next step, what's your next stroke. And most importantly, and this is what I think is most important about the no mistakes philosophy, is what opportunities do you now have or do you now see that you may have not seen before. And I can think of countless times here that we have found ourselves maybe not so much making a mistake, but just in an unfavorable place where things aren't working out the way we want them to. And we have then found a solution or found another opportunity that we probably wouldn't have explored otherwise. And as I'm talking about this, I'm reminded of how I started my journey here at Zentangle, and this isn't exactly what I was going to talk about, but I think it's a good one. I grew up next door to Rick and Maria and to Zentangle, and I was always aware of it. I tangled, but this was never my journey. And then my senior year, or the summer going into my senior year of college, I found myself working full-time at an insurance agency, a pretty large one here in New England. And I was working full-time. But when they hired me, I said, in the fall, I'm going back to school. Here's my class schedule. Is this going to be a problem? And they said, nope, that's fine. They assured me they could work around it. Everything was great. Then fall rolled around, and it was probably mid-November when they told me it wasn't working. My class schedule was too much. They couldn't be flexible. And they had already hired my replacement. I had 1 week left. At the time, this was very upsetting, very unfavorable. And that evening, when I called my mom to tell her what had happened, I was very upset. I kept saying, they said my schedule was fine. This has to be some type of mistake. But alas, I was out of a job. What I didn't realize is that when I called my mom on her cell phone, she was actually at our neighbor's house, Maria, probably enjoying a glass of wine. And when she got off the phone, she told Maria about what happened, about what our call was about. And Maria said, well, we need some help here. Have her come up on Monday. And so I did. And that was almost 6 years ago. And at the time, working for Rick and Maria and working for Zentangle wasn't something I considered at all. It never even crossed my mind. But if it weren't for that unfavorable place I found myself in leaving the insurance company, I would have never had this opportunity. And I think it's really important to look at these obstacles that way, whether it be life, like my job, or whether it be in your Zentangle art, when a line goes somewhere that you don't want it to, when it doesn't go as planned, well, what options and opportunities do you have now because of that? And I think if you take anything away from this philosophy, that should be it. And as you can see, I'm just about done filling my black space with my praying toms. It goes pretty quickly when you're working large. Your space might be a little bit different shape, but you get the idea. And then when you are done with your praying toms and you fill the entire black area, you can go ahead and put your cap on your jelly roll. And you can pick up your Micron 01. Then we're going to be working in the space kind of right below the black inked area, so wherever that may be for you. If you're on one of these pages, it will be over here. And what we're going to do in this space is a tangle that I've been calling Melting Muka. And this is actually inspired from a T3 Maria did, oh gosh, maybe last fall, called Simplified Muka. And it was a approach to Muka that was less intimidating than traditional Muka. And I was playing around with it one day after she posted the video, and I kind of started doing this little technique, again, that I'm calling Melting Muka. So we're going to start with drawing a line coming down, and come about halfway down the page. And then I'm going to add a curve and then a little bulb at the end. And then I'm going to aura the outside of this line all the way around like that. And there is your simplified muka. And then I'm going to add another one, but I'm going to aura this outside line that I just put down. And when I get up here, I'm going to go in the other direction. And then so this line acts as my aura till I get about right here. Then I'm going to keep going all the way around. And then I'm going to go into this space here where these two diverge away from each other. And I'm going to aura this top part. And then I'm just going to go straight down, curving, creating a little bulb at the end and filling it in. And we're going to aura and so you can see here with this one kind of why I've been calling it melting muka, because it's kind of melting over the side. I'm going to add another one here. And then I'm going to add one. I'm not going to do the rounded part. We're going to imagine that it goes under the black ink. And then I'm going to do a melting one over here. I'm going to come down there. And then aura. And what's great about this is that it can kind of just grow in any which way, any direction that you want. And you just keep adding these mukas. Melting over each other. Working from top to bottom. Or bottom to top. Basically, I want them to be going, reach the ends of the pages. And then you can keep working off of the ones you've had, or you can start some new ones. And again, we're treating the white space and the black space as two separate spaces. So when you come up to this black space, you want to just stop and pretend as if it keeps going underneath. So I think I'm going to stop about right there with my melting muka, melting up and down the page. And then now we have all these little spaces that are just asking for some tangles. So I'm going to fill some of them with some tangles. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to start with the Tangle Shattuck. And you start by making these arched lines and then aura the inside of them till you get down to the corner. And then you want to turn your journal or your tile or whatever you're working on. And you're going to add another arching line, kind of going in the other direction. And again, begin to aura the inside of them. Each one getting a little smaller until you reach the corner. And then you're going to keep alternating directions, drawing behind any of your little muka bulbs that you might come across. So now that I've filled that space with Shattuck, I'm going to keep filling some of my spaces with Shattuck. So I'm going to go ahead right here. And again, when I start Shattuck, I like to start with the biggest arch first. And then I want to aura the inside. And again, the biggest arch first, and then aura the inside. And then I'm going to move over here in this section right here. I'm not going to draw Shattuck. I'm going to fill this space with Inzeppel, or Crazy Inzeppel. So I'm going to start by drawing some lines that just keep overlapping each other to create a bunch of different size and shape spaces. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to redefine the line until I get to the corner here, and then I'm going to round out the corner and then continue to redefine this line. When I get to this corner, I'm going to go round, redefine the line, round the corner, redefine the line, round at the corner. So it's like I'm taking an egg or a Nerf football and I'm shoving it into that space. And I'm going to continue to do that in each of these little spaces. And it's important that you redefine the lines. You could try and take the easy way out and just round the corners. But if you see, that doesn't really give it the same look, but when you redefine that line, it gives it that look of that egg being smushed into this space. And so then after you have that space, you can pick a different space, and again I'm going to do Inzeppel again. And I think I'm going to stop right there. You can always go in and fill in all these spaces with Shattuck or Inzeppel or any other tangle, tipple, poke root, poke leaf, any of those things would fit nicely in there, but I'm going to leave it there. I like the balance of the tangles in the white space. So now we're going to shade. And first I'm going to shade my Printemps up here, and I'm going to pick up my graphite. And usually we say you don't want to put a lot of graphite down on black areas. And that is true. I just want to give it a little bit of depth. So I'm going to go to this first Printemps that I put down, and I'm just going to add a little bit of graphite, like I said, just a little bit, very lightly, on the outside here. And then I'm going to do that same thing for all my Printemps. So it's kind of bringing the ones on top to the front and pushing the ones on bottom down, but just very lightly. It's almost not noticeable. And then I'm going to take my tortillon and I'm just going to soften it. And then I'm going to take my white charcoal pencil and I'm going to add some highlight over the weighted parts of my printemps. So I'm just going to add, I'm pretty light-handed, some right there, there. Wherever I've added weight, I'm going to add some white charcoal. And I'm going to take my tortillon that's I'm using with my white charcoal pencil and I'm going to soften it. I love the relationship between the black parts of this journal and the white charcoal when you smooth it out. And there your printemps is shaded. And you see we just did some light shading, very subtle, but it kind of brings it to life a little bit. Then to shade our melting Mucha and the tangles inside, I'm going to start over here with the Shattuck. I'm going to take my graphite and just very lightly, I'm going to shade each of those top arcs very lightly. This tangle is fun to shade because you can really give it a lot of shape and dimension and life. And then I'm going to add some graphite on the edges here of my Mucha. And I'm going to be a little more heavy-handed. And then over where I have the Inzipple, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a lot of graphite here. And then I'm going to take my tortillon, go back to these Shaddocks, and I'm just going to quickly soften this little bit of graphite that I put down. And then I'm going to go along the edges here. And I'm going to do the same thing over here with my Inzipple. In these little ball spaces, you want to be sure that you still keep a little white in the middle so you get that contrast of light and dark. As our final active shading, I'm going to add a lot of graphite along this black ink area over my melting Mucha. And again, I'm being generous with my graphite, but also knowing that I can come back at any time and add some more. And then I'm going to use my tortillon to smooth it out and pull it out a little further. And I'm actually going to go back and I am going to add some more. And by adding the shading there, it's almost as if the black part is coming over the melting Mucha. It actually looks a little bit like storm clouds. which is very fitting for today because last time I looked out the window I saw some forming. But there you have it. We've got printemps, melting muka, some shaddock, and zempel, and no mistakes. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for tangling along.